The old Johnson house had stood at the end of Pinewood Lane for nearly a century. With its Victorian architecture and weathered facade, it was a relic from a bygone era. Its creaky floors and dimly lit hallways seemed to harbor the memories of countless past inhabitants. For years, the house had been the subject of local folklore, whispered tales of ghostly apparitions and eerie occurrences that sent shivers down the spines of the town's residents. When Emily and Jack decided to purchase the Johnson house, they saw it as an opportunity to restore a piece of history. Newlyweds with a passion for old homes, they envisioned turning the dilapidated mansion into a charming bed and breakfast. The locals, however, were less enthusiastic, often warning them about the strange happenings that had plagued the house for generations. "People say they hear whispers in the attic at night," warned Mrs. Hawthorne, the elderly neighbor who had lived in Pinewood Lane her entire life. "They say the spirits of the original owners still linger, unable to find peace." Emily laughed off the warnings, attributing them to superstitions. Jack, ever the skeptic, was more interested in the structural integrity of the house than in ghost stories. They moved in, undeterred, ready to begin the arduous process of renovation. The first few weeks were uneventful. The couple worked tirelessly, stripping wallpaper, sanding floors, and painting walls. The house began to transform, shedding its neglected appearance for a fresh, inviting look. Yet, as they delved deeper into the restoration, strange things started to happen. It began with small, almost imperceptible occurrences. Objects would go missing and turn up in unusual places. Lights would flicker without reason. The old grandfather clock in the hallway, long broken, began to chime at odd hours. Emily brushed it off as quirks of an old house, but Jack grew increasingly uneasy. One night, as they were getting ready for bed, Emily heard it for the first time, faint whispers emanating from the attic. She paused, straining to listen, but the sound stopped as abruptly as it had started. She mentioned it to Jack, who dismissed it as the wind. Determined to prove his point, he climbed the narrow stairs to the attic, flashlight in hand. The attic was a dusty, cluttered space filled with old furniture, trunks, and forgotten relics. Jack waved the flashlight around, illuminating cobwebs and shadows. There was nothing out of the ordinary, yet the atmosphere felt heavy, oppressive. He hurried back down, assuring Emily that there was nothing to worry about. But the whispers continued. Every night, they grew louder and more distinct, as if voices were engaged in a hushed conversation just beyond the reach of comprehension. Emily found herself waking up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, ears straining to catch the elusive words. Determined to get to the bottom of the mystery, Emily decided to investigate the attic during the day. Armed with a flashlight and a dust mask, she climbed the creaky stairs, pushing open the old wooden door. The attic was just as Jack had described, cluttered and dusty, filled with the remnants of past lives. As she sifted through the piles of forgotten belongings, she stumbled upon an old, leather-bound journal. Its pages were yellowed with age, and the handwriting was elegant yet faded. She carefully opened it, discovering that it belonged to Margaret Johnson, one of the house's original owners. The journal detailed Margaret's life, her joys and sorrows, and her gradual descent into madness. Margaret had been convinced that the house was haunted, that spirits whispered to her in the dead of night. Her entries became increasingly frantic, filled with accounts of shadowy figures and disembodied voices. The final entry was particularly chilling. "They are coming from me. I can hear them in the attic. The whispers are growing louder. I must find a way to escape." Emily's hands trembled as she closed the journal. The parallels between Margaret's experiences and her own were too striking to ignore. She hurried downstairs to show Jack, who read the journal with a furrowed brow. Skepticism gave way to concern as he realized the gravity of the situation. That night, the whispers were louder than ever, echoing through the house like a sinister chant. Emily and Jack lay awake, listening in terrified silence. Suddenly, a loud crash reverberated from the attic, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps descending the stairs. Jack grabbed a baseball bat and motioned for Emily to stay behind him. They crept towards the attic stairs, hearts pounding. The door at the top of the stairs was ajar, and the whispers were now a cacophony of voices, each overlapping the other in a dissonant symphony. As they ascended the stairs, the temperature dropped, and the air grew thick with a palpable sense of dread. The flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. When they reached the top, they were met with an astonishing sight. The attic was bathed in an otherworldly glow, and figures materialized from the shadows, their forms translucent and flickering. The spirits of the house's past inhabitants stood before them, eyes filled with sorrow and anger. Among them was Margaret, her face a mask of torment. "Why have you come here?" Margaret's voice echoed through the attic, her tone filled with anguish. "You have awakened the curse." Emily stepped forward, her voice trembling. "We didn't mean to disturb you. We only wanted to restore the house." Margaret's expression softened, but the other spirits remained restless, their whispers growing louder and more frantic. "The house is bound to us," Margaret explained. "We cannot leave until the curse is broken." Desperate to help, Emily asked, "How can we break the curse?" Margaret pointed to an old chest in the corner of the attic. "In there lies the source of our torment. You must destroy it." Jack hurried to the chest, wrenching it open. Inside, they found an assortment of ritualistic objects, candles, a dagger, and a book bound in human skin. The book seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, its pages filled with dark incantations. Realizing the gravity of the task, Emily and Jack took the book outside. Under the light of the full moon, they gathered kindling and set the book ablaze. As the flames consumed the pages, a deafening roar echoed through the house, followed by a profound silence. The spirits appeared before them one last time, their forms now peaceful and serene. "Thank you," Margaret whispered, her voice a mere breath of wind. "We are free." With that, the spirits dissipated, leaving Emily and Jack standing in the cool night air. The house, once filled with whispers and shadows, was now quiet and still. They had freed the souls trapped within its walls, breaking the curse that had haunted the Johnson house for generations. In the weeks that followed, Emily and Jack completed the restoration of the house. It opened as a bed and breakfast, attracting visitors from near and far. The eerie tales of whispers in the attic became nothing more than a distant memory, a legend that added to the charm of the old Victorian mansion. Yet, on quiet nights, when the wind rustled through the trees and the moon cast long shadows, Emily sometimes thought she could hear faint whispers, a reminder of the house's haunted past and the spirits who had finally found peace.